Okay, Richard, it's an honor and a privilege for me to meet you in Bucharest.
Thank you.
Your speech yesterday at the Humanist Conference at the Palace of the Parliament was brilliant, and everybody was very moved and excited by your speech. Please tell us something about your work, about your magic work.
Okay. Well, I became interested in magic when I was very young, very small, and worked as a magician for a few years, doing magic tricks, and then became interested in science and in psychology, because magicians use a lot of psychology when they perform a trick. And so became interested in psychology, and then became interested in skepticism and humanism and atheism, anything ending in ism, basically, except Judaism. I wasn't very interested in that. And and then started to sort of become more involved in skepticism in particular, and now go around the world giving the sorts of talks that I gave yesterday, which was a very good event. Congratulations on the event. It was very good. Very good.
Thank you very much.
Amazing venue.
Yes, the building is amazing.
It's huge. It's huge.
And from my point of view, that hall is maybe the most beautiful.
It's very gorgeous. Yeah. Yes, in fact, it's on my phone now. You won't be able to see this, but every time I start my phone, I get the.
So you can show this.
I get this amazing picture. I don't know if it's still there.
Yeah.
It's just almost gone. I'll do it again. Here we are. This amazing picture on my phone of the gorgeous chandelier in the hall.
Yes.
So yeah.
I think that it's the biggest in Romania.
Right.
And it has 5 tons.
Yes. I hope it's secured properly. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. But no, it's great. It's a very big hall.
So, what are, from your perspective, the connections between magic and science, between magic tricks and science? And do you believe that there is a kind of magic which is not science?
Okay. So I think there's a very strong relationship between magic tricks and science, because every time you do a magic trick, it's like doing an experiment. You have this idea that if you do this certain thing, that people will be fooled. And you hope you are right. You hope your experiment is successful. And you carry out your experiment again and again on people, and normally it works, and they don't know how the trick is done. So it's like science. You're carrying out experiments. You're trying to find out how people think and perceive the world. And so I think there are quite strong similarities there. Do I think there is anything sort of beyond science? I suspect not. I don't believe in magic or witchcraft or the supernatural. I think there are things which can't be reached with the scientific method. I think there are things we will never understand with science. Science has its limitations.
Such as?
Well, I mean, history is one. You can't do experiments with history. Art, I think, is another. There are aspects of the world which you can't really do science with. But that doesn't mean that things are supernatural or anything like that. So I'm very sceptical about witches and real magic, as it were. Yeah.
So when you say that there are some things that are beyond science, you don't want to mean that this is a kind of supernatural.
No. I just mean that the science will have its limits as a method of inquiry. And so if you look at a piece of art and you love it and I hate it, you can't bring in science, and science says this is a good piece of art.
Studying,
that's right, paint or it doesn't work like that. Yeah. So there's some things beyond the scientific method, but actually most things are not. Actually, most things you can do some sort of science with.
But in our days, the magicians use science to do magic tricks.
Right, yes.
But in the past, a few centuries ago, let's say, maybe there were magicians who done some scientific tricks, called them magic in the hard sense of the word.
Yeah.
What do you think about this? There were the
Well,
magicians from the past,
yes,
and maybe even today.
Yeah, there are. So actually, the problem is if you take a coin and I make it disappear, it's a trick.
Yeah.
And so yes, it's an interesting trick, maybe. But it's still a trick. It's still a trick. And so its interest to a human is quite limited. Now if I say, I'm making this disappear and it really has vanished, I have genuine powers. Now this is more than a trick. This is far more interesting. And so if you look at someone like Uri Geller, and I don't know whether Geller was big in Romania, he just sort of bent a spoon, tiniest of things, but because he said it was genuine, all this worldwide interest.
But it was a trick.
Many people think it was a trick, and magicians can certainly perform a very similar trick. But the important thing is, he said it wasn't a trick. He said it's a bit, and suddenly we're all so fascinated by it. So I think one of the problems with magic as a performer is that if you are honest and say this is just a trick, you get a small reaction. If you lie and say, oh, it's not a trick, this is something else, you get a huge reaction.
Let me confess you something.
Yeah.
It's the same in politics.
Right, okay, good. Well, that's reassuring and terrifying at the same time. So I think there's a temptation. There's a temptation as a performer to say, oh, it's not just something else going on. So if you say, you contact the spirits and you hold a seance and darkness and objects move around, then suddenly people are fascinated by it. So it's interesting. So magicians, they use this word frame. It's the frame you place around the trick, and the frame could be, this is a normal trick, this is supernatural, this is contacting the spirits, this is science, this is all different frames that you can place around tricks. And some magicians use science as a method. So if you don't understand a piece of science, so for example, there's some metal which when it becomes warm, it bends naturally. And if you don't understand about that, then you can think it's powers of the mind, but it's just science. So yes, there's an interesting interlocking of magic and science.